Meteorologist Casey Cloud coming on the air right now for areas around Ocala because there's a flash flood warning in play here at 09:45. Some significant flooding concern there in parts of Marion County. We're getting some reports of some of that flash flooding there. Even you see that little icon there around Ocala as this very, very heavy rain is falling at night. So there's some escalated concern here into where Marion County. It's a Friday night. A lot of folks out and about, high school football. There's, kickoff classics trying to get going. At least some areas, they're going off successfully. Other areas, not so much. But as you look here, toward Marion County, there's a report of considerable street flooding reported along State Road 40, North Pine Avenue, South Pine Avenue, and West Silver Springs Boulevard. And roads, even just, 10-15 minutes ago, before we had even more of this, a very heavy rainfall accident coming through. They were already deemed impassable for low clearance vehicles. These are from 911 and a spotter. And this is becoming serious. This may get upgraded to a life-threatening situation even here as we look ahead. The alert would go off on the phone like the tornado warnings do, that type of situation here. I know did have some bad flooding in Marion County, going back here, early morning type of flooding here not too long ago. Handful weeks ago, but that wasn't right in Ocala. This is concerning. I think we're going to have more of these flash flood warnings unless we start to see this red go away quickly, because a lot of times you can jump on and within a matter of moments you start to see it decay. That's not the case here. This is very heavy. This is at night. This is serious here for Ocala. Flash flooding situation evolving rapidly here around Ocala. I just sent out an update. The weather service in Jacksonville did, and at 9:06, train weather spotters reported significant street flooding in the Ocala area, as we were alluding to, with roads impassable for low clearance vehicles. Between 1.5 and 3 inches of rain have fallen, and we could have at least another inch and a half, but I wouldn't be surprised if even more than that, unless Raiders really overdoing this here, because this looks like some very heavy rainfall action here. Cause for concern. Confirmed flash flooding could have even, this becoming a bigger deal with some flash flooding there of some small creeks and streams, urban areas as well, just escalating on us here. Highways getting worse. Streets and underpasses with other poor drainage in low-lying areas. As I see, we just got another green box pop up. It'll show up on this source in a moment. It's not a considerable or catastrophic flash flood warning. Catastrophic would mean emergency, considerable would go off on the phones, as an escalating threat. We don't have that. We have another green box here that's about to show up on the screen here in just 1 second as we're watching this, include I-75, and there you go. You see the other flash flood polygon. That's now till 10 o'clock. So let me read you that statement. At 9:09 p.m., train weather spotters reported significant street flooding in the Ocala area. I know they're kind of seeing some of the same stuff in both of these, but it goes for both areas here, and they're saying roads impassable for low clearance vehicles. Between 1.5 and 3 inches of rain have fallen, an additional amount of 1 to 1.5 at least possible here, with flash flooding already occurring, towards some of these different spots here. So, nasty situation for sure. You just got to be really cognizant of what's going on in this scenario. I know, it's summertime. And we have high rain chances even higher coming up than today, but sometimes things can just happen and get going very quickly here. So we have multiple flash flood warnings now in Marion County. Let me go ahead and put a loop on this. I was watching it myself, as we track these storms here, things can just come together pretty rapidly. There's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, you don't have too much. 7 o'clock, you start to see some stuff. It doesn't look overwhelming, and then things kind of come together, and now they're not moving. They're just expanding and causing more concern here in Marion County. Again, multiple flash flood warnings in Marion County right now. This is not your run-of-the-mill flash flooding situation based on how heavy this is looking on the Doppler, the heavier rainfall rates, higher rainfall rates in an hour than you would generally expect. I mean, based on the coloration, you're not really moving with the reds, just sitting over the same areas. It's at nighttime, and it's in a populated area. So this is some, escalated concerns. A Friday night when people might be in unfamiliar areas here, going out and about here with these copious, amounts of rain. It's something that just happens. So it's not like a hurricane where it's coming. This can just happen, and then you get caught in an unfamiliar area. You can't see how deep the water is, and we could have a really serious situation on our hands in Marion County. I'm pretty concerned. This is, we've had quite a few flash flood warnings locally this year. I mean, not, something like what we've had nationally, just some terrible ones. But for our local area, this is one of the more concerning, scenarios we've seen all year. With these 2 polygons now on the screen, we may end up getting this upgraded to considerable if this red just keeps sitting over this area. Again, this is very concerning here in Marion County. Again, multiple flash flood warnings here in play, both coming within the last 20 minutes or so as things are getting worse there. It's very heavy rainfall there in our southern area there, within the viewing circle. And we got to be very mindful. I know as we zoom out, we have a lot of rain, even lightning in, Alachua County and the like, but it's not as concentrated as it is in Marion County. The rest of the area looks kind of quiet, relatively. Some lingering moisture on Tallahassee, but not seeing the electrical energy really. You see this rain there in Alachua County. There's some lightning, as we're zooming in. Paradise, just, fringes of Fairbanks there, and you just see around Lochloosa down toward McIntosh, we have some heavy rain and some lightning, but it's worse right down here. I mean, you see some of our southern fringes too, and far southern Marion. We'll watch that if that's on the fringes of the area, but this is by far the most concerning scenario here, right around Ocala. I'm going to check some other things here and check the temperature to see what echoes it's showing on the radar, and it's showing some considerable, concern in my assessment. I'm not trying to, I don't mean to use that nomenclature to, say it needs to be upgraded to Weather Service or do that upgrade here. If it is, really deemed necessary, if this continues like it's looking like it's going to, then that might be necessary, but hadn't quite become maybe necessary yet, but it's getting on the edge of that here. As we're looking at things and we're tracking things, but there's enhanced concern here as we're looking at things right now into Marion County. This 1 hour rainfall estimate, over 3 inches in the last hour, right in there in that gray area, pretty populated out here. And then, in the ward areas we have maybe a lot of, traffic even, an inch or two at least. But this is very heavy over a wide area, and that is concerning. Now, I'll back it up just a tad. The last couple frames, we might have seen just a little bit of weakening on the eastern fringe of this, but within the 2 green boxes, not really much. This is concerning here. As this worsens, we could have some, it's not out of the question. We could start to have reports of some water rescues even here in toward Marion County. So we got to be really careful here. This stuff can just kind of happen sometimes as we're looking now. There are traffic cameras toward the interstates, but I think the more, concern to be more on the side roads here. We're going to have more trouble draining things. So I'm trying to put some cameras up, but this may not show the full extent of the danger here. As, we can't always see exactly what's going on, on those side roads from the interstate view, but it still is going to look pretty nasty on this view on I-75 that I'm about to pull up here from the traffic cam system. So let me go ahead and say that, lightning around, heavy downpours, some folks even having their flashers on. I was noticing, you see the traffic backing up there even somewhat on this view on that right side, top right corner. We're seeing some slowdowns there as this is some really nasty weather, obviously, in Marion County right now. Again, this is on the interstates. They're more elevated as people try to get off on the side roads. They may encounter some real problems here where, it becomes really a life-threatening situation. So maybe not so much on the interstate. You can hydroplane, of course, but in terms of the flooding, this isn't, something like a river flooding or anything like that, in theory, but so it's not going to just come over the interstate here. But on the side roads where we can't really see, that's where we get a problem. But you see this is an efficient lightning producer here too, and that's concerning. It's not severe tornadic right now, but it is a strong thunderstorm that's, producing so much rain. When I say severe, it's not. It's severe thunderstorm warning. Flash flooding, some folks will characterize it as severe weather. And it is, very dangerous. When I say severe weather, I'm talking about severe thunderstorm or tornado warning. We don't have that on the board right now. We do have a flash flood and, 2 different flash flood warnings here in play. Again, I suspect things are worse off the main road. Worse off the main road here in toward this area. We have a little bit of wind enhancement in here. It's just, goes to show you how much energy we have to work with. This isn't winding down as quick as we would like with this serious scenario in Marion County right now. Again, let's go ahead and look at some things. We'll go to the infrared satellite imagery here and to see all the colder cloud tops on the other mode here. Again, you can see them there in over Marion County. Again, this is a cause for concern there in over Marion County right now. Some enhanced concern. That's the storyline right now on this Friday night. Toward Marion County there, toward the Ocala Metro. Again, people, getting caught out in this, obviously. Not a good situation, that is for sure. This is the infrared satellite. Let me go ahead and move away from that. We'll go back to the radar here, and this is not moving. That's the problem. This is moving quick, like a squall line would. Well, you might have severe weather or something like that in terms of rotation or wind, but you wouldn't have all this flooding concern like what we're dealing with here, right in the metro. We'll check some rain gauges here to get actual ground truth on this from Marion County weather stem sites. We're going to try to figure out, exactly how much is falling in some of these rain gauges here. Let me check the Marion County EOC. They're down at 75 degrees. They've gotten 2.88 inches of rain, it looks like. So that's pretty significant there. Not as bad as it could be, but pretty significant there as we're tracking things. So, actually reported on a rain gauge. So that kind of tells that weather story. Let me go ahead and continue effort information on in here. As again, we have multiple flash flood warnings here on the board as we're looking toward Marion County right now in our southern part of our viewing area. Again, folks trying to enjoy a Friday night. Instead, we have some concern toward Marion County. So let me go ahead and keep looking at some things, keep tracking some things here as the situation does move along. We're just trying to keep you guys informed on the scenario in general. So let me go ahead and just kind of keep looking at things here, as we go minute by minute in the timeline. We're definitely trying to keep you guys up to date here on this dangerous weather situation. So let me go ahead and keep looking here, keep tracking. I know we have about 4,000 customers in the dark in the state of Florida, only a handful though in Marion County right now. That's good at least, but this is more about the precipitation. That's why we're on. There's this very heavy rainfall, very heavy, and high rainfall rates, your efficient rainfall production that's not really moving. And that definitely is a cause for concern here as we're looking at this overall situation. So again, I'm just trying to keep you guys informed on what's going on here as we move minute by minute in the timeline. I know as we look in our area, we could have a situation here that, is one where we have some lightning in our camera view. So let me go ahead and pull it up real quick. Bear with me just 1 second. We'll switch over to that because some of that stuff there in Northern Electrical may kind of show up with some flashes on here. It's not, might, take a second here, but as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things, that may not be worth keeping up too long, but yeah, there you go. So that kind of told the story. I don't have night vision, but at least you saw that for a second there. What I'm talking about, our view is some of this moisture here that's in our Northern Electrical, where you see some strikes though starting to get into toward southern parts of Bradford County. So, in fact, let's go ahead and switch over to another mode. I know we got a couple tenths of an inch earlier today. A little over 2 tenths here around Stark east of town. I'll loop this around here real quick. We'll see if some of this tries to get closer. We see some lightning, edging toward the Hampton area right now. I know as we're tracking things here meteorologically. We're monitoring that. I hear some rumbles of thunder even now. We'll see if some of the energy can make its way further north. I know Bradford High School playing a kickoff classic down in Brevard County tonight, and luckily the weather's pretty good there. So, but in toward north central Florida it is not good, especially in toward Marion County. But even Alachua, you see how much rain this is in the last hour, an inch and a half, and to where I-75, 2 inches there, northwest side of Gainesville. But as we get into Ocala, that's where we have concern. We just got another update here. It looks like I see coming across. They're continuing this warning. They've now upgraded this. They are getting more and more concerned now, folks. We haven't had one of these in a long time. around here, probably since the hurricane season last year when we had our tropical situation, but we now have an upgrade where one of our two boxes here is now considered was a life-threatening situation. We don't get these very often here outside of, a landfall and tropical system. This is now a considerable threat, going off on the cell phones now in the area that is under the danger, because we have now seen an enhancement here of this flooding. This is now taking an escalation. This is a life-threatening flash flood situation now. As we're looking, they issued that for Ocala proper. So let me go ahead. When I say they, I mean the National Weather Service. They're in Jacksonville. This is now a life-threatening situation for Ocala, folks. We do not get these very often around here with considerable flash flood warning, unless it's, a landfall and tropical system. But let me read you the statement from the Weather Service here in Jacksonville. They're saying at 9:21 p.m., emergency management reported considerable street flooding in the Ocala area with roads impassable for low clearance vehicles. They're saying here, the Weather Service is that most roads in downtown Ocala have been blocked due to flooding. Again, most roads are now blocked in downtown Ocala. One vehicle is stalled in the floodwaters, and we've already seen about 3 inches in some spots, and now it's a situation, maybe even 3.5 inches, and some areas could get another inch or more. So, life-threatening flash flooding of creeks and streams, urban areas, highways, streets, and underpasses there in Ocala. So you got to really remember now, and if you're in Ocala, you see a road that looks like it's too, deep with the water, and or if you just can't tell, you're saying, well, I think I can get through this. Well, you can't take any chances here in this situation. The water might be too deep. You just need to remember the mantra here of the Weather Service in Jacksonville. You need to turn around, don't drown when encountering the flooded road. Just, it's very dangerous. Most flood deaths occur in vehicles, and especially at night. It's after sunset now. People are in unfamiliar areas, and we're getting very significant flooding there right into Ocala. This is very serious stuff here. This is a life-threatening flash flood warning for Ocala here. Again, be especially cautious at night when it is harder to recognize the dangers of flooding. Be aware of your surroundings and do not drive on flooded roads. Again, this is escalated here. I started to see it. We were deciding probably about 30 minutes ago when the warning came out. So we just posted better to come on and decided to get things ready to come on because we saw the escalation. The red didn't look like it was decayed, and unfortunately it's just coming down at night. Not as much area as, fertile water, not as many areas for the water to run off here in Ocala because of more concrete. It's more populated, so you're not going to have as much grass, and that water not running off here is, it's just accumulating, and now it's starting to really get the roads to be flooded there, according to some reports in Ocala here. So this is very concerning around Ocala and Marion County. Again, we're very concerned. A considerable situation, a life-threatening flash flooding of creeks and streams, urban areas, highways, streets, and underpasses, potentially in some cases, confirmed in some cases. So, again, not what you want to hear. It's the polygon to the right here, the one that we came on with first out of these two green boxes. That's the one now that is, life-threatening flash flooding that we're talking about in Ocala. But, this area over the years we've had, sinkholes even form. So, I don't think it's impossible. All this rain over Ocala could cause some of that, and one or two isolated spots. So, again, roads. So we could have, we saw it in Debbie last year, some roads washing out toward, the Swanee River Valley. So we could have, in an isolated case or two, not widespread, but in an isolated case or two, a sinkhole or a road washout even in toward this area based on my assessment of the situation. So, again, we really need to be cognizant of this here in Ocala and Marion County. Again, we have a life-threatening situation right now in Ocala. It's, just coming together here, unfortunately, right in Marion County. Again, we're probably talking about, I wouldn't be surprised if some areas are approaching 1/2 foot of rain. This is showing 4.5, but, so this is only through the top of the hour, so in the last half hour even. I wouldn't be surprised if some areas are approaching 1/2 foot of rain here right in Ocala. Another rain gauge wouldn't sound quite that much, but we're getting some very concerning reports out of Ocala. The rain is just not relenting there. It's unrelenting there in toward Marion County. You see a few more areas of yellow and orange versus just a solid red. That's a very, minor trend in the right direction of a little bit of weakening, but it's not quick enough. Normally after we've been on like 20 minutes for a flash flood warning and a pop-up pattern like this, we're starting to really just see a lot of decay. We got way too much red on the board still, way too much heavy rainfall over an area that's already flooding. That's just going to make things worse until we start to see this, become a situation there in Ocala where it's mainly just greens with a little yellow mixed in, and by then we'll start to be in a better spot. But this is one of the more concerning flash flood situations we've seen all year here in our covered area, and it impacts Ocala on a Friday night. It's after dark here. This is not as bad as what we've seen, like, in the tropical system last year, year before, and the like, with some flash flood emergencies or considerable warnings and the like within our 62 counties. But this is very concerning for this localized area here, and the localized area is a metro area where there's a lot of people, a lot of population right there in Ocala at night, a Friday night when a lot of folks are out. And this is not a good situation here in the ward Ocala. So, just in terms of the geography here, based on the heavy rainfall and radar, we're talking about US 27 with, the concern they're not seeing these roads, specifically the ones shut down, but we're talking about State Road 40. We're talking about, just these different areas here within the area of concern. Of course, I-75 and the other polygons. So, again, this is concerning here in the ward Marion County right now. Very substantial rainfall there. These very high rainfall rates. So, again, we have a life-threatening flash flood situation in Marion County here, and that's why we're on the air with you guys to walk you through it. Again, this is concerning there for our friends in Marion County. Let me go ahead and continue to check things here. Again, this is a life-threatening warning here for Marion County. The right polygon out of the two there on the screen. Let me see if I can get some more traffic cameras. Bear with me. Just trying to effort you guys the very latest here on what's going on. It is 9:29 on this Friday, August 15th here, 2025. So again, we're just trying to give you the very latest here on what's going on here in this situation. I'm going to try to pull up some views. A lot of them on 75, so I'm not going to sell, the nature of how bad this is, maybe on the secondary roads, versus the primary roads. But this is not too far, this view from the Paddock Mall, but this is on the interstate. I suspect off the interstate it's quite a bit worse based on what we're getting in here too. But, into the weather center, look at those flashes. This is still unrelenting. It's not break it up. It may have weakened just a little bit, but it's still very significant here in Marion County. Again, this is not showing, how bad it is in neighborhoods, because this is a road that's going to drain a lot better than those roads there, in some of these neighborhoods where we have all, this water there that's accumulating, has nowhere to go. Here it's a little bit more of a better infrastructure for the drainage and the like. But, we don't have views on these secondary roads as much. I'm going to see if I can find some. Bear with me here. But you see a lot of flashes. This is still a strong thunderstorm situation. And you see folks with, obviously it's night. They have their lights on, but some even have their flashers on here because of the downpours here at times. I had some of that, at least on some of the views I've been looking at. So I'm going to keep looking at the situation. You have reports of at least 2 inches in some spots, but right at Ocala here, downtown is where we've had some significant flooding. I'm starting to see more of the yellow and orange, view here on the radar echoes become a story versus that red. That's a positive trend. That's a trend in the right direction, a trend we desperately need there around Ocala. So that's some good news, but we, still probably some areas are still probably getting worsening flooding for a little bit longer here, but maybe we've reached the top and we're going to start to see some of this drain a little bit better now with these rates not quite as high, and that'd be a very, very good trend here, folks. That's what we need, obviously. There's been a report of a crash in Marion County on I-75 North a mile marker 352 above shoulders blog. So this rain causing an issue in that regard. Let's pull up a traffic cam on that then, as we get this a little bit further north than all this, and you see how it's a slower go here because of the accident. You know, gotta think the weather played some type of role in this here. In North Marion County, I-75 northbound, a mile marker 352. Again, a nasty situation here, as you see how slow it is because, you know, the weather playing some role with the accident there, playing a role as well. So, as we're looking, you know, all kind of coming together and causing problems here, unfortunately. Let me go ahead and move away from this viewpoint here. As we're tracking things in Ocala, we need that red to go away. It's trying to. As once we get that red away, that'll be a better trend here. But we gotta get that off the board here in toward Ocala because that's some very, very heavy rainfall in toward that area there. As we're tracking things, as we're monitoring things, again, you don't normally in the meteorological sense have to say with a flash flood warning this long, but we have this escalated concern, all this heavy downpour action coming together right in Ocala. Things not moving fast, and it's just, you know, adding insult to injury as we get more and more rain to fall down, you know, out of the clouds. So again, I know, you know, going back a few years, we had that flood near Bradford Middle School in August there, and it's dark. And this is in Marion County where we're looking, but, you know, my point is, this stuff can just kind of, you know, cause those localized problems here, even in August, you know, not even a tropical system, and you have problems on your hands. Again, we're watching things. I know if you were watching our update yesterday with the storm coverage versus the thunderstorm, we were talking about an area in the Gulf there that was headed toward southern Texas. Thought it might develop tropically. It did not. We didn't have to come on for that. So our next name is still Farnon. That'll be, you know, maybe used for something else out in the tropics. You know, we're not concerned about Aaron around here, Hurricane Aaron out there. We are not concerned about it except for rough surf. You know, at the beaches, it's going to be kind of rough, but it's going to stay way away from our area, as we've talked about for days here. That's the good news. Now, we could have another system behind that evolved that could be something to watch. So stay tuned for the latest. It's too early to get details on that, as Aaron could dictate the path for the next system in some ways based on the overall pattern that's left behind. So we'll have to just kind of watch that. So, again, that's kind of the storyline on that, on the, you know, more maybe, you know, not just hyper local level, but on the macro scale level of meteorology right now and geographically. So again, we still see some reds in here. I want these reds to go away. I mean, you can see as I back it up and go forward, we're trending in the right direction, and we just turned in a better spot. That was good. Up there, right on us there to get, you know, it's still oranges. Once these oranges go away, we're going to be in a better situation. So, you know, we're kind of, you know, the end of the tunnel there is in sight now for Marion County, but for Ocala especially, but we're not quite there yet. It still could get a little worse before it gets better, but we're doing better compared to where we were, you know, just 10 or 15 minutes ago. But the roads are probably could still be life-threatening, even if the rainfall rates, you know, as it looks like are dropping, you know, are in fact, you know, dropping as we're looking, you know, if you're like standing, you know, just inside a business there or something, you see the rain starting to slack off some, but it's still coming down pretty heavy. So again, you got to keep that in mind as we're tracking things, as we're monitoring things here in toward Ocala, in our southern part of our viewing area, as we're tracking things here. So again, a dangerous situation. Let me just go ahead and keep looking at what we're, you know, dealing with here. We're just trying to keep you guys informed, obviously, on what's going on. This is so important here to be mindful. Just going between all the different modes here. It's not often we get a, you know, considerable flash flood warning around here, one that has a life-threatening danger here with it toward portions of our covered areas. So I'm going to just go ahead and keep looking here. I'm going to see if we can get some more information on some of the sources. Bear with me. You know, Ocala is a very populated area, so I'm going to check social media for some reports here, see if we get some reports in here on what's going on. I know that whether it's attacks talking about life-threatening flash flooding occurring in Ocala, most roads in downtown have been blocked due to flooding. One vehicle starting to flood waters may be getting even worse than that at this point. That's why you cannot go through those flooded roads, because that can cause those vehicles here to become, ones that are floating even. And, and some of these worst case scenarios, and only 6 inches of water, as it says on the screen there, the 6 inches of flowing water can knock you down. And with the roads impassable like that, we're probably in that realm here as we're tracking things in toward that area. So considerable street flooding there, as we've talked about. Talking about, looks like along some of the different roads there, like State Road 40, North Pine Avenue, South Pine Avenue, Silver Springs Boulevard. So not a great situation there in Marion County. As we're looking at things, as we're tracking things there. Again, some, enhanced concern there in toward Ocala. As we're looking at things, of course, we're trying to keep you guys updated on all the different platforms. It's all about protecting you, all about protecting your friends and your family. We're trying to stay on top of this here as the situation does progress. So, as we're looking at Marion County here and the like. So, let me go ahead and keep checking some different things here. We're starting to slack off some. We will be watching some other areas. I mean, look at that there. This is a lot less populated, but right along US 301 there, Hawthorne to Lock Loose at Island Grove, we got some heavy downpours. It hadn't really shown up in the rainfall amounts too much yet there, but it's probably trying to. So we're going to be monitoring that here, obviously, in towards southeastern Alachua County. As we're looking at Bradford County, we're going to be, seeing some development. But Marion County, we're looking, parts of, Sumter County outside of the viewing area there with some development. This is kind of taking off more though around Lock Loose and Alachua County somewhat. I mean, you see some purples in there, maybe even a little bit of small hail, and not out of the question, probably be that big, but we're not expecting severe thunderstorm warnings or tornado warnings to pop up out of this, but rogue severe thunderstorm warning can't completely be ruled out. So again, we're just trying to keep you up to date. Let me go ahead and keep checking things here. Gonna go to another source. You see here, there's 2-3 inches in an hour in some of those reddish areas, but this area here, so we're talking about 2, 3, 4 inches, but really that only goes to 9 o'clock, and since 9 o'clock, I mean, it's in another inch or two. So if you really add those together, you're getting close to half foot of rain there within an hour and a half or so around Ocala, give or take. So that's not a good situation to be in, obviously, as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things here meteorologically. So again, tracking this here very carefully. Right in the view, a lot of the area not seeing rain. You're wondering, why am I on? What is going on? It's all about this Ocala area. We've had these flash flood warnings. There are some storms just south of the area near I-75 around Wildwood and, just north of Ocala in toward Alachua County, Hawthorne, down through Lock Loose. So along US 301, we got some pretty heavy rainfall there right now. But otherwise, I mean, look how empty it is. I mean, they actually have real games, in terms of the counting in the records tonight in South Georgia for high school football. So this, is a good picture to have. At least we don't have, lightning going on up in toward our South Georgia counties. I mean, there's some stuff further up in Georgia, but, at least that's a better sight. But as we're tracking things here, we're just trying to keep you guys up to date on what's going on here in toward the weather picture. So again, you see some different things, including look how warm it is down there. Bradford High School just getting done, I think, with their kickoff classic. They fell against Coca, lost in that one, but you see how warm it is. Almost 90 still down there. As observations from the end of the last hour, that is warm. As you're looking here, a little bit cooler in quotation marks to the north, but still some 80 plus readings on the board. We're at 81 here east of Stark right now, and the real time on the thermometer is at, my number 81 is right now, not, 20 minutes ago, whenever some of these observations are from, even, from maybe even further back in some cases. But as you're tracking things, it is still toasty out there in toward the meteorological picture. But as we go ahead and keep looking at things, you see some severe thunderstorm watches further up in the country. One in Illinois, another one toward parts of Wisconsin and Minnesota. And you see severe thunderstorm warnings in parts of South Dakota and also in toward parts of Nebraska there. As we're tracking things, it's kind of a storyline there. Of course, Aaron out here in the tropics. Let's pull up the infrared satellite. You see some of this. It looks like maybe an eye trying to be a storyline there. And Hurricane Hunter's out there on the track of this. It's expected to take it well to the east. Some rough surf for our area, but that's about it. I mean, even if we take the further west track on this, about the closest that this is going to get toward our area, maybe a little over 500 miles away. So it's pretty far away. It's enough to start to surf, make things kind of dangerous at the beaches. But that's about it. So, maybe some dry air in terms of the overall pattern in the land areas, though, as we're tracking things. Now, as we go ahead and look at the situation, I want to pull up some forecast model information, as we look. Now, sometimes the models aren't going to pick up certain little micro-scale features. In this pattern, it's going to be hard sometimes for them to do that, in fact. But let's go ahead and try to go to what the model is showing for 9 o'clock tonight. And it wasn't so any of the random variants. You just, sometimes you just have to kind of broad brush the forecast a little bit. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, it started to say some down there, but it was not on top of it. As we're looking here, your HRRR modeling, but as you get into more, I keep the warnings lightning and temperature to all the current, but you'll see the radar is simulated radar underneath here, and this is the morning. It's not so much, at least. As we get in the afternoon, though, we start to see some development, so just be ready whenever thunder roars, go indoors. And you could have some more of this stuff stalling out a little bit too and causing some problems in the localized areas. So that gets you into early Sunday morning even. So we're just kind of watching now. We're just kind of tracking there here. I know we still have 2 flash flood warnings continuing until 10 o'clock for portions of Marion County. That one, they updated it, went to considerable. They extended it out to 10 o'clock. As we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in toward the weather center. As we get back down here, you see the weakening continues as you would expect now in the ordinary, but still it's enough to not make things, that much better as we're looking there, as we're tracking things. Another thing I want to pull up real quick, I know it's kind of crowded on the map in some ways here. Let me take off current temps. I'll take off the models, most of these here too. And then I'll even take off the wind radius forecast that we have. If you look at that, you see how far east it's going to be, but as we're kind of looking at things, what I want to do here with the modeling, I'm going to pull up the GFS here. I'm not going to go all the way out with this, but I just want to show you this kind of a storyline we need to watch a little bit here. In fact, I'm just going to let me take off lighting, let me take off warning, let me just take off everything but what is relevant here as we're dealing with this overall situation. Okay, so you can kind of see. You can see our system down there. I'll take off the Hurricane Hunters too. So, as you see here, you see our area on the bottom right. That is Aaron. And that's going to kind of follow the white dots here generally. As what we're expecting from the Hurricane Center. We could actually have some dry air come in locally on the western side of that. So, you see how this is kind of going. Maybe even, maybe even a little bit east of that track, but about what you would expect there as you get. This is on the 18th, so Friday, today's the 15th, so as you're looking at things, that's Monday on the 18th there. Tuesday is the 19th as we're looking here, as we're tracking things. I know we're just trying to keep you guys up to date. You can see here this track. You see the well-defined eye may be a Cat 4, maybe even trying to get a Cat 5 hurricane, but you see it's safely away here. Just, marine conditions that we're talking about now. It's possible we could get a little closer. Not showing it here, but, get a little closer to North Carolina. But this has it moving away. This is the 21st, so that's next Thursday. And, you see that it's off, of the northeast by a pretty wide margin. But then you start to see something else come into view here. And the pattern, the pressure pattern and the overall meteorological pattern could be aligned differently though for this next storm system. We don't know yet. We don't know at this point. And, you know, I'm not going to go too much further out with the modeling, but we got to be watching because this is by next Saturday. We could have another tropical cyclone in the view here that could be, you know, 1 to watch, possibly. We don't know. It's way early to know for sure at this point as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things. But you see it's trying to ride further off toward the west here, you know, versus the path of Aaron. And you see that water-defined eye. And you see that moving toward the Bahamas. So that could be another hurricane, obviously, as we get out there later in the timeline. That's as far as I'm going to go out with it. But it's just an idea of what could happen there. That's getting all the way out there. The date on that is the 25th. So I mean, that's pretty far out there in toward the timeline as we're getting out toward Monday there. Not this week coming up, but the following week. So we'll need to watch for maybe another system, you know, and, you know, if you kind of look at that, if something was down there, then that could, in this pattern, if it's what some of the models are forecasting, could portray a bigger threat toward our local area. So we South Sea or just Florida, southeast of U.S. in general, but way earlier. That's as far as I want to go with it. It's always important to have your hurricane kit up to date, but not because of Aaron, but because of another system out there in toward the tropics. So we South Sea with all that. Let's get back over toward the radar. You know, that may not even happen. Sometimes the models will pick up on stuff and it just doesn't even form, which is what we like to see. You know, we don't want these tropical cyclones to be forming here. That is for sure, but we have to be watching just in case. You know, as we're looking here, look at even the wind pattern right now, but you just got a new update on one of these flash flood warnings here. Looks like they've extended for Marion now. Okay, so they've extended it with a observed versus a considerable now. So Central Marion County until 10:30 at 9:48. Emergency management reported considerable street flooding there in the Ocala area with roads impassable for low clearance vehicles. Most roads in downtown Ocala have been blocked due to flooding. One vehicle was stalled in floodwaters. Between 2 and 4 inches of rain have fallen, with additional amounts of up to about an inch, give or take, possible. Really could add up to 6 inches, though, based on my assessment as we're looking here around Ocala. But, you know, we're probably on, you know, we've had most of that by now. So what I mean by that is if you're not that close to it now, you're probably not going to get there within the green boxes. But, you know, some areas are closer to it. But it's really slacking off in the moment. The roads are still going to take a little bit of time to drain here. You see how it's really decaying now. We have way more green than anything. This is more light rain, you know, nuisance rain. In this case, it's still going to make a little longer for things to go down, waters to receive. But at this point, we're in a lot better spot than we were at the top of the hour and we were at 15 after and the like. I mean, we're in a better, much better spot than we were in, which is what we like to see there in toward Ocala, you know, versus where we were earlier on. But storm total rain, some of this is showing 5 inches there, right in towards some pretty populated areas. But I wouldn't be surprised if some areas have gotten, you know, bordering on at least, maybe just under that 6-inch mark within the rain gauge. So that's kind of the storyline there. You see some pretty heavy rain in the northeastern Alachua County right now. Even some wind enhancement there. It's not overwhelming, but, you know, I mean, in these rain situations, sometimes you can have these little spins. They're not necessarily going to be, you know, tornadic or anything, but it's something to watch. As we're looking there, southeast of Lockalusa, don't think it's anything too crazy. Those numbers don't add to too much in terms of the winds, but we'll watch. They may put a significant advisory on that because of that little spin, but maybe a land spout potential or something, but not overwhelming concern with that. As we look down toward the south here, south of the villages, you see, you know, some lightning, you know, toward that area, but north in Bellevue, some lightning there in our covered area as well. As you're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in toward the overall picture. So, again, we'll just have to continue to watch things very carefully, you know, as as those, waters recede, because it could still be a little bit dangerous still for folks to be out and about in Marion County, according to the Weather Service, through about 10:30 or so before the waters really are in a much better spot in terms of receding. So that's what we're kind of dealing with in that regard. So we're just going to have to continue to watch all of that here, continue to track it as the timeline does continue to move along. So let's go ahead and keep looking at some things, though. Gonna keep checking some things. Again, going through some of the different sources here. We're gonna wrap it up pretty soon. Just checking some things here. Trying to keep you guys informed. And just watching the overall weather pattern. I'm gonna go ahead and zoom on out. You don't see too much more in the view here at this point, 9:53 p.m. In other places other than Alachua, we have some of this in toward Putnam, and then Marion, where the concern has been this weekend. We have some more stuff south, Bellevue around Summerfield. It's starting to intensify a little bit as we're looking down there. I mean, getting some heavier rainfall. More rural, take a little bit more rain to really cause the flooding there, but in terms of the rainfall, rates and just the overall totals. But things are looking better now in Ocala after all that rain. I mean, we had that life-threatening warning, which very rarely get around here, and we've been covering that for you for the better part of the last hour, trying to keep you, your friends, your family safe and informed. Trying to keep your friends, your family safe and informed, as well as yourself here, in toward the weather center. So we're going to have to just keep watching things here in terms of watching that weather recede, but things are looking better there now in terms of the meteorology of things. Still be very careful, but the roads could still be flooded. Could take a little bit longer before it's safe to pass through some of those roads. It is dark, so it's hard to see. Some folks maybe just come across this and don't realize how much rain has fallen, and they get caught in a bad spot if they're like on 75 coming in and then getting off on the side road, and they kind of stumble upon this before the water receded all the way. They didn't realize how much rain fell, and then that could be a problem. But we're starting to really see an improving picture here on the radar, so I think it's good, to let coverage go at this point. I think we're okay to do that. Still got to be careful, still got to be vigilant here. Through about 10:30 with the warnings continuing, but we're in a better spot now with a lot less, rainfall coming down here with these rates a lot lower than they were. And that's some good news. Stay safe, everybody. Try to enjoy the night the best you can. It's Friday night, but, some areas that hadn't been very enjoyable, obviously, with this danger. Thanks so much for tuning in. Trust in me. Have a great night.